Some of the deepest betrayals in life don't come from enemies. They come from the people you helped, the people you defended, the people you supported, the people you sacrificed for, and somehow they became the ones who hurt you most. Maybe they started criticizing you. Maybe they grew distant. Maybe they acted as if everything you did for them meant nothing. Or maybe they simply walked away. And the hardest part is, you never saw it coming. Because you thought kindness creates loyalty. You thought helping people creates connection. You thought that if you were there for someone when they needed you most, they would never forget it. But human psychology is far more complicated than that. Friedrich Nietzsche understood something deeply uncomfortable about human nature, a truth most people never realize until they experience betrayal themselves. Sometimes helping someone too much can quietly destroy the relationship. Not because kindness is wrong, but because dependence changes people. And once emotional debt enters a relationship, gratitude can slowly transform into resentment. Today we're going to explore the hidden psychology behind why kind people are often betrayed, why some people secretly resent the ones who help them, and how to protect your peace without losing your humanity. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may completely change the way you help people forever. Maybe you've lived through this yourself. Maybe you answered their late-night phone calls, listened to the same problems for months, defended them when everyone else walked away, lent them money, gave them opportunities, believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. You invested your energy into helping them rebuild their life, and yet, somehow they became colder, more distant, more critical. And eventually, they became the source of your pain. If you've experienced this, you're not alone. And you're not imagining it. Because one of the biggest lies we're taught growing up is that good intentions guarantee good outcomes. That if you love deeply, give generously, support others emotionally, people will naturally appreciate you. But real life often teaches the opposite. Sometimes the more you give, the less respect you receive. And psychologically, there's a reason for that. When someone is struggling emotionally, financially, or mentally, and you become the person who constantly lifts them up, something invisible begins to happen. A psychological imbalance forms. Without realizing it, you become the strong one, the stable one, the capable one, and they become the one who needs. At first, this creates gratitude, relief, comfort. Maybe they thank you. Maybe they tell you how much you mean to them. Maybe they promise they'll never forget your kindness. But over time, for certain people, something changes because every act of help carries a hidden psychological cost. The more help they receive, the more they're reminded that they needed it. And for some people, that reminder becomes painful. Nietzsche believed that human beings are driven by a deep desire for strength, a need to feel capable, independent, in control. When someone repeatedly experiences themselves as dependent on another person, their ego begins to suffer. Even if they never admit it, especially if they never admit it, because now every interaction contains an uncomfortable truth. You saw them at their weakest. You witnessed their insecurity, their fear, their failure, their vulnerability. And some people cannot tolerate that. So instead of confronting the discomfort, they begin distancing themselves from the person who reminds them of it. Sometimes they become colder, sometimes more defensive, sometimes strangely critical, and sometimes they begin attacking the very person who helped them. Not because you hurt them, but because your presence reminds them of a version of themselves they desperately want to forget. Nietzsche had a word for this: ressentiment. A deep psychological resentment that develops when someone feels powerless but cannot face that feeling directly. Instead of confronting their own weakness, they redirect the emotional pain towards someone else. And often, that someone else is the person who helped them. Because every time they look at you, they're reminded of the debt they feel inside. Not necessarily financial debt, emotional debt. And emotional debt can become surprisingly heavy. At first it feels like gratitude. Then it becomes discomfort, then embarrassment, then shame. And if that shame remains unresolved long enough, it can quietly transform into resentment. This is one of the darkest truths about human psychology. Sometimes people don't hate you because you harm them. They hate you because you help them too much. But the story doesn't end there, because betrayal becomes even more painful when it comes from family. Most people expect manipulation from strangers. They expect dishonesty from competitors. But family is different. Family is supposed to be safe, supportive, loyal. And yet some of the deepest emotional wounds come from the people we're related to. Why? Because family relationships often contain invisible expectations, unspoken obligations, old power dynamics, childhood roles that never truly disappear. Sometimes the person you've helped isn't just a friend. It's a sibling, a parent, a cousin, someone you've known your entire life. And that makes the betrayal harder to understand. Because you've invested more than kindness. You've invested history. Maybe you've always been the responsible one, the problem solver, the peacemaker, the person everyone calls when something goes wrong. At first, this role feels meaningful. You feel needed, valued, important. But over time, something dangerous can happen. People begin expecting what was once appreciated. Your kindness becomes normal, your sacrifices become invisible. And eventually, the very people you helped may start acting entitled to your support. Not grateful for it, entitled to it. This is where many kind people get trapped, because they mistake being needed for being loved. But those two things are not the same. Being needed can create dependency. Being loved creates respect. And when respect disappears, betrayal becomes much more likely. There's another pattern that appears again and again. Some people don't see kindness as kindness. They see it as weakness. They see your patience and think you'll tolerate anything. They see your generosity and think there's always more available. They see your forgiveness and assume there will never be consequences. So they begin testing boundaries, small at first, then bigger. And bigger, they ask for favors, then more favors, then sacrifices, then expectations. And because kind people often avoid conflict, they keep saying yes, until one day they realize something shocking. No amount of giving is ever enough, because the problem was never what you gave. The problem was what the other person expected. Some people don't appreciate kindness. They consume it. And there's a huge difference. The people who appreciate kindness feel grateful. The people who consume kindness always want more. No matter how much you give, no matter how much you sacrifice, no matter how exhausted you become, it is never enough. Because their hunger isn't practical, it's emotional, and emotional hunger cannot be satisfied by endless giving. This is why some of the kindest people end up feeling used, not because they lack compassion, but because they lacked boundaries. And boundaries are one of the most misunderstood concepts in psychology. Many people think boundaries are walls. They're not. Boundaries are filters. They allow healthy people closer and prevent unhealthy dynamics from taking over your life. Without boundaries, kindness becomes self-sacrifice. Without boundaries, generosity becomes exploitation. Without boundaries, love becomes emotional exhaustion. This is why emotionally mature people learn something incredibly important. You can love someone and still say no. You can care deeply and still protect yourself. You can support people without becoming responsible for their lives. In fact, that's often the healthiest form of kindness, because real kindness empowers. It doesn't create dependency. Real kindness helps people stand. It doesn't carry them forever. And this brings us to one of Nietzsche's most important insights. People become stronger through struggle, not through rescue. This doesn't mean we should abandon others. It means we shouldn't rob them of the opportunity to grow. Because every time you solve a problem someone should solve themselves, you unintentionally weaken them. And eventually, they may resent you for the very dependency you helped create. That's the paradox. The more you rescue people, the less powerful they often feel. And the less powerful they feel, the more likely resentment becomes. This is why wisdom matters more than kindness alone. Because kindness without wisdom can become destructive. Not only for you, but for the other person as well. And perhaps that's why so many deeply empathetic people eventually reach a breaking point. Not because they stop caring, but because they finally realize that caring is not the same as caring. And that realization changes everything.